already saw a preview of the artist. I'm sorry, you weren't supposed to see. I'll show you in 1 second. But first, I want to welcome you to the 3rd episode of Harmony and Friends, casual conversations about art and business. I am so thrilled to have you here today because we have 3 incredible artists, 3 new artists that have not been part of these conversations before. And they have a little bit to share from their personal stories, from their personal approach of successfully and maybe unsuccessfully, but at least pitching. They're doing it, they're in that game. And I think we can learn a lot from it because some of us will spend so much time building up our art skills. And then we get to the point of, now what? Right? Now I'm stuck. I know I want to get my art out there. I know I want to get deals with my artwork, be it surface pattern design, be it picture book, illustration, doesn't matter. We have different artists to speak to each of those. But then you're stuck. And it's really difficult sometimes to get information on how to proceed and succeed and what to expect during the whole process. So let's have those 3 wonderful artists introduce themselves today. Welcome so much. So thank you, everybody, for being here. I think some of you have also not met, maybe all of you, which is always an interesting aspect of this format. But so far, it's worked really well. So I hope we can all vibe with each other as well. And I hope everyone in the comments also really feels the love of this community because it is all about connecting. And while we start the introductions, I'm going to have a quick question for the audience as well. So please do join in the conversation. And so for everyone watching now, tell us how long you've been making art and if you've ever tried pitching before or not. All right. Awesome. Then we will start with a round of introductions. You each have 2 to 3 minutes to just tell us about your art and your art business and anything else you'd like us to know. So we'll start with you, Fleur.
Hi, so I'm Fleur Crawford, the owner and creator of Hafton Studio. And I started Hafton Studio after a long career in the fashion and textile industry. And after having my kids, so I kind of like, it was like a thing that I was doing in my maternity leave. I was really craving being creative again because my job was really creative. And at the time I was working in high fashion for a fashion designer here in New Zealand. And then, yeah, I just kind of brought an iPad and then it was kind of like never stopped. And I just kind of went back to work for a little bit. And then I had my second baby. And then I just kind of like Hafton Studio kind of grew organically from there. And I had my first baby in 2018. And I think I really kind of started doing it a little bit more seriously, maybe 2019. And then, yeah, maybe 2020 was when I really, I don't know. The years just go. But yeah, my kids are like 4. My youngest is 4.5 now. But yeah, and yeah, I do surface pattern design, textile design, really mostly. And I have recently this year kind of got into coaching and mentoring, and I have a Patreon, and I've been doing workshops and stuff with my friend Ryan. And yeah.
Wonderful. I can't wait to hear all about how you're pitching your work. It's beautiful. I love what I see there on the side with the little flowers. Yeah, so cute. Yeah. Gorgeous. Thank you so much for introducing yourselves. Anna, do you want to go?
Sure. Hi, good morning. Thank you for having me first. This is an exciting opportunity to talk my head off. So I've been a designer, artist, illustrator for as long as I can remember. Officially, professionally, I've been making my living out of design and illustration and art and everything in between for the last 30 years. Like really, this is the only thing I've done in my life. And so, in design, I've been doing a lot of branding projects. Some have been quite big, like designing graphics and redesigning how an airplane is painted for an airliner. So I've designed several airlines, but then I've also done a lot of restaurants, which allow me to create a lot of patterns for fabrics, for wallpapers, just like a lot of things, or for packaging design for food companies. So there's that whole like graphic design that I try to put as much illustration and surface pattern in it. Then I also have a clothing line for little girls called Paper Girl Collection. And I create all the patterns and all the artwork that goes on the fabric. And every little dress comes with a little storybook that I write and illustrate, which takes me to the next thing. I'm a published children book author and illustrator. And then, I'm just making art all the time. Sometimes it ends up being, for kids. Sometimes it ends up being like grown-up art. I do ceramics. I do, basically I'm nonstop. And while it seems like I do all these different things and they are disconnected, my love of color is really what stitches everything together because I'm obsessed about color.
I love it. And you aptly picked that as a username. So if you're looking for her, Anna Loves Color is where you'll find her. And I really love hearing that because I also think it's so interesting how much like each of us is creative, and yet I'm sure there might be some differences, and I'm interested in hearing if there is any differences in how you pitch that different kind of work.
Oh, definitely.
So you and Fleur both have lots of different things going on. So I'd love to hear later what commonalities there are and what you specifically tailor for different recipients and different industries. So super interesting. And Tatjana is back after a mad sprint. Can you hear us, Tatjana? You're frozen on my screen. Oh no.
She's frozen in a good position.
It's very favorable. Okay. And now you're moving. Can you hear us, Tatjana? And can you share a little about
me?
yourself?
Did you? Now I can hear you.
Okay, great.
Yeah, I'm sorry I had to run and let my dog in. But I guess I'm more like Anna. I've been doing this forever, but I'm a children's book illustrator officially, and more recently I've started to also do some licensing and some different things like that. But I went to school for illustration and French because French was the serious choice. and it actually has worked out well in my life. But so I graduated with a degree in illustration, and then afterwards I've been a museum fabricator, and I've painted murals, and I've taught children, and I've for children's art classes, and then I'm a children's book illustrator mostly. So, in a nutshell.
In a nutshell, it's hard to do anything like this in a nutshell because as artists, you often have so many different income streams, right? And so many different specialties. So thank you all for sharing a bit of background. Just for setting the scene for everyone that's watching. We are going to go and set the scene a tiny bit more. And we're basically going to go around in a circle. And this is a quick fire round. So this is not something where you're going to answer it at length, 5 minutes or something. This is just a sentence or two for each question so that everyone watching has an idea of where you're coming from. We're just going to go on until Tatjana comes back, and we'll give her a chance to answer the questions when she is able to be there. There she is. Okay. Okay. So the first question that everyone's going to get, and we'll just go around in a circle in the same order that we started at. So Fleur, what kind of art business do you have? I think you've already said it. Maybe just summary in 1 to 2 sentences.
Okay, so I'm a textile and surface pattern designer. I've been in textile and fashion for 20 years, but so I'm doing this with licensing, and I've got multiple streams of income, kind of different things, but because I do coaching and stuff as well now.
Thank you. Anna?
So I'm a designer and illustrator, and I create artwork that has a story behind it and that has as much substance and color as possible for each one of my different clients or different opportunities to create art for.
Great, thank you. Tatjana, unfortunately, I don't see her. Do you see her right now?
No, it's black.
Oh, that looks much better. Hello, Tatjana, can you hear us? The picture is great.
She's frozen.
Yeah. All right. I'm sorry, Tatjana. I don't know if you can hear us, but your connection seems to be a little iffy. So I'm going to go on for now. But as soon as you're back, you can participate.
Oh, she's back.
Oh, perfect. Okay.
I'm back,
Perfect
yeah.
timing. So just in 2 sentences, what kind of art business do you have?
I know
Oh, no.
mine is, am I back?
You're
Yeah.
back.
I'm just going to talk. I'm a children's book illustrator. I'm a children's book illustrator. I'm also starting to write my own stories, and so eventually I will, I'll expand in that direction. I do some licensing, especially for cards and some personal projects and commissions with people. So I've made some gift wrap recently that was really fun, or children in town as well. Just since I'm a children's book illustrator, it's nice. I really appreciate having contact with children and their world and their art.
I love that. That's beautiful. I have a suggestion and a question for you. I think maybe the audio will stay steady if we turn your camera off. I would love to see your face, but it does keep freezing up. Maybe your bandwidth is not able to handle both video and audio. Do you want to give that a try?
I'm going to keep talking since no one else is talking. But
yeah, I don't think you can hear us, or there's a delay.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, she heard that, I think.
Are you back?
All right.
Yeah,
we're just gonna keep trying.
Hear me at this?
We can hear you, yes.
Yeah,
there seems to be some time delay and a lot of freezing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I have that for you too. But do you all have the same? Yours all works? Because my internet is.
Yes. I'm able to hear and see everyone else normally. It's just your connection that's freezing for me. But it looks better now. So let's just keep trying.
Sure.
All right.
Okay.
When did
anyway, should I say it again? No.
No, we heard you. Perfect. Thank you. When did you first start pitching your art, Fleur?
I think the first pitch I sent out was 2019, but I think I have been really concentrating on it maybe in the last 2 years. So 21 and 22 that we're in now.
All right. And you, Anna?
So now I'm going to sound really, really old. I started pitching my work in 1995. Wow. So I came back from graduate school with zero money, and I made a list. I was in Mexico City. I made a list of all the advertising agencies and design studios, and I started calling to see who would hire me as an illustrator for projects. So not so much for licensing, but it was to be hired to create art for a project.
Oh, well, if we're looking at that, then mine's, I don't know, 20 years ago. I worked in-house for a long time. But yeah. I'm talking about like for my own brand. Yeah.
No. I've been on my own forever. I've only worked for somebody for 6 years, and that was in the 2000s. This was, just to get freelance commissions for illustration from all these different agencies and design studios.
Yeah, it's definitely interesting to hear both perspectives. I think that's so helpful to have someone who's maybe fresher to this, and 2 years is still a lot of experience because a lot of us watching have never done this, right? That's why we're so interested in it. So I think there's nothing to laugh at with 2 years, but I think it's also interesting to just see, to have the balance of artists who have never been in a different career, and then artists who have successfully made a switch that a lot of artists are interested in making, and changing that after having a different career. So definitely both very interesting perspectives. And Tatjana, how about you? When did you start pitching your art?
I'm with Anna because that's all I've done pretty much too. So I started, I would say, in 1997. And I think at least my perspective is interesting to me because I started by making photocopies and mailing out physical mailers until, just recently. So it has really evolved a lot. And I think that's kind of interesting. It's almost hard to remember how many photocopies I used to make.
I can't wait to hear what it looks like now for you. All right.
Yeah,
So
much
more
cheaper, so much cheaper.
Yeah, I bet digital solutions definitely seem easier than the photocopy approach.
Yeah.
So how frequently do you pitch your art, Fleur, approximately?
I don't really have a rhyme or reason to this at the moment, but I'm trying to streamline it so I do a little bit more. I've had a lot of people reaching out to me, so it kind of has kept me busy. I kind of got to a point where, I've been like trying to do those emails and reply to people reaching out to me, but it's just something that I've kind of just been going, oh, I want to work with that company and I'm just going to reach out to them now, or managing the companies that I work with at this point in time. And when I feel like there's someone new, then I just layer it in. But I would really love to kind of streamline it to kind of break out of the categories that I'm in to try and pitch to some new categories. So I will be streamlining it in 2023.
Oh, that's so great that you want to build a process, but it's also wonderful that you're booked, right? I mean, that's a dream right there, to just not have to be pitching because you're getting all the projects that you want already. So pretty good stuff. Anna, how about you?
So right now I'm about to shift a little bit my strategy for pitching. So in the past, most of my pitches have been for projects, and those tend to be longer term projects. So that means I don't need to pitch so often. Plus, later I'll share some other things that have to do with long-term projects. But in the new year, this is my New Year's resolution. I want to start pitching much more often so that I can get more licensing deals. And I think that's a whole new area I want to explore for the new year. And I'm excited about it.
Very cool. Yeah, that's probably, it makes complete sense what you're saying, that the frequency isn't an easy answer. It really depends on what kind of projects and themes you're working with. And for example, a picture book, right, it's going to take so much more time to create, so that, you might want to have your next one lined up, but there's no point pitching every week because you just don't have the capacity to take on that much work. So that makes complete sense. Tatjana, how about you? How frequently do you pitch your art?
I have a kind of a combination of all of them, but I agree that if you're sometimes it's hard to remember to keep that you need, if you are busy and you have something lined up that will take a long time, that you still need to keep sending things out, so that something new will come along while you're working. But I have a bit of Fleur's approach, where if I see a company or a new publisher or a new area that I'd like to be in, I send them a message right away and hopefully follow up. And then otherwise, I have a bit of a regular schedule too, where I send things out, a combination of things I think we'll talk about later. But yeah, it's important to remember to keep, even though you're busy, to keep sending things out so that you will stay busy.
Yeah, it's hard to prioritize everything, right? You can't do everything all the time, but this seems like a big one if you miss that opportunity, and you'll never know how quickly you're able to get that next deal. That can be a real issue if that is something that is your main source of income. I think for people that are maybe trying to do it as a side business, it isn't as critical, right? If you have some downtime, but if it is your sole source of income, and for a lot of our audience, that is the dream or the goal, then there's a lot more weighing on that pitching process as well. So the last thing I have before we go into more detailed questions for each of you is, what tools do you use for pitching? So I'm talking like emails with a link or PDF, or I think there's certain services you can use. You mentioned mailers. I'm just, in the actual postal mail. So I'm interested in what do you use technically for your pitches? Fleur?
So I haven't done any mail outs for Houghton Studio, because I'm kind of in New Zealand, a lot of my clients and stuff are in the US, so I haven't kind of touched that. And because of the pandemic, I feel like it's a little bit maybe redundant now. Like it's people are working out of office and all over the world now. So I've been emailing, and sometimes I attach something and sometimes I don't, because sometimes I found things bounce or don't get through with an attachment. So sometimes I'll just have a link to my website, or other times I've actually just reached out to companies on Instagram. Like if I feel like I'm going to be talking to the right person, I will reach out there. Or if I feel like I can't find the contact to, then I might send them a message there as well, to go, hey, do you know who I would talk to, or do you have artist submissions, that kind of thing at the start. But yeah, email's my biggest one. Yeah,
that's pretty encouraging to hear, I think.
Yeah.
I haven't done a lot of pitching myself, and any pitching I did is for an industry that I no longer am focused on. So at first I was interested in picture book illustration, and I found that I don't actually think that's my thing at all over kind of the longer time. That's really not my strength or what my art is suited to. So all of that was bound to fail when I pitched, because I wasn't very good when I was pitching. But I was sending out postcards, and it was really expensive, and I think pretty pointless, because it was right before the pandemic. So I don't think those postcards made it to anyone, really. I think that's a good takeaway. Anna, how about you? Do you do it digitally?
Yeah, I mean, yes, there's the email aspect of it, like everybody. Occasionally, if I am, very zeroed into somebody, and I'm very sure I have the right address, like physical address. I mean, all this pitching takes a lot of detective work. Mm-hmm. But if I'm like 100% certain and I'm really zeroing in on somebody, I may send a little package. And sometimes the packages are related, but sometimes it's not. Sometimes I send them, like a magic box with, like interesting things. It's sort of like, notice me, let's have a conversation kind of opening. And then, there's a lot about just like starting conversations, because you don't know where a conversation is going to take you, and you don't know when a conversation is actually going to turn into like a little crack open door that allows you to pitch in. So I think that's another big aspect, that aspect of serendipity that I'm always trying to find.
I can feel a little bit of the magic that you're describing with those little packages, and I can just imagine how excited someone is if that is their aesthetic and it is an interesting fit for the kind of work that they're looking for, to kind of be surprised by something like that. I think that it probably really makes you stand out and makes them quite happy to have such an interesting surprise.
You just need to be sure it's actually arriving to the right person on the right desk or at their home.
Right, and you can't do a mass mailing for sure with anything like that.
So that's the other thing about it.
Yeah, it's a very cool idea, though. Tatjana, how about you?
I actually combine still. I send an email with attachments, like a couple of images in the email itself, in case it doesn't. A page that has all my information on it and some examples that I think are suitable for the person I'm sending it to. And then I also still send out physical postcards, theoretically twice a year, sometimes just once. And I did do it last time right around COVID too, so I see your problem. But I did get a job out of it, like an ongoing job so I do think people still enjoy getting a postcard, and sometimes it just comes at exactly the right time, and now it's less expensive and less complicated. So I think it can still be worth it, at least for publishing, at least at the moment. I mean, as part of the strategy.
Yeah, and I think, like I said, I can freely admit that timing was maybe 50% of the problem, but so was the quality of the artwork. So that's one of the reasons why it didn't work out. But I've gotten better, and I've shifted, and no hard feelings, Sometimes I do things before I'm ready. Let's put it that way. But all right, thank you so much all for sharing. I think there's some interesting approaches there, and we'll probably get into those a little more. So I'm going to take off this question once I can find it and give you a different one. Fleur, I would love to start. Would you mind answering this question? What is your end-to-end workflow for reaching out to clients, from like finding them, communication, follow-up, anything you'd want to share?
Okay. Okay. So finding them. I haven't recently like gone out on the hunt for them, but if I'm like really like, okay, I want to expand kind of like my, I don't know, my list, or my like kind of my wish list of companies, then you can go to like stores and look underneath products and find the manufacturers and stuff that way. And then just go to a store that you feel like that might, your artwork might kind of align with, and you can look under on the products and see manufacturers and stuff and get clues. It's kind of like all little clues to who they, you know, to who to contact kind of thing. Otherwise, kind of sometimes when you're on Instagram and you're you might be following one company, there's other companies that kind of like pop up of like suggestions and stuff. So there's that. Yeah, I don't know. I just kind of like find like these kind of like things that I kind of like, oh, I would love to see my designs on them because they're aligned with like the product that I love. Like I mostly focus on children's design. I was a children's wear designer for 8 years before I started my own company. And so that was kind of like when I was most happiest in my career and stuff. And it's like, I don't know, I just love children's wear design. I've branched into a little bit of homeware and stuff as well. But yeah, like Geometry, who I ended up working with, they do tea towels and stuff. They work with artists for that kind of thing. And so I just was like, saw that other artists were working with them and was like, wow, that looks fun. And so I reached out to them. I also really wanted to see my prints on like nappies and that kind of thing. So I reached out to a nappy company here in New Zealand that I wanted to work with, and I've actually done quite a few. I've done quite a few nappies, so I'm like with a couple of maybe 3 companies at the moment, or 4. Lots of nappies. So yeah, so it's just kind of like what I feel like my product's going to work well on, and a good alignment, that kind of thing, and things that excite me, you know. So end-to-end workflow. And then if there's a company that I really would like to work with, then I would just put like an email together. Like I don't make it long or anything because they're busy people. So it's just really like short and sweet, and just like, do you have any artist submissions? If I've kind of researched their company, if I can't see any, then I might ask that question, or I might just say, if you're looking for new art, I'd love to work with you. And it's just having 5 seconds of courage, really, just send the email. And most of the time you don't hear back. I would say like if sometimes you have to really like just wait. I don't kind of do it. I don't have this like strict thing like I've sent an email and then like, oh, I didn't hear back. I just really forget about it. I don't I don't sit there looking at my email. I've got plenty. I kind of go on the thing that I would rather be consistent and just be creating new work and not looking at my email. I don't really stress about like, oh, they didn't get back to me. But if I haven't heard back, like sometimes I leave it like a month or even 2 months, and then I might go, oh, I haven't heard back from them, and then flick them another email. But I like to take the approach that I don't really want to be bugging someone with the same work that I've already pitched. And so that's why I consistently work. And when I reach out to the company again, I like to say, hey, I've got something new to show you that I think would align with your company. I don't know if you had a chance to see my email before, but here's something new. And it also just, I think, shows that I'm a working artist and I've got some fresh stuff that would align well with them. So yeah, I'll let the others talk now. I think that's a
No, you're in a hot seat right now. But I have some other questions for you. But first, I thought it was so interesting to hear how you approach that. And it makes total sense to not obsess about it and keep badgering people like, hey, you haven't responded in 3 days. It makes total sense. And it's probably not something that would have occurred to me. I would have thought, okay, you kind of get on a schedule and you're tracking who you've talked to. But that's actually such a beautiful way to just, hey, here's something else that might be a great fit for your company, and stay top of mind in that way, versus just kind of following up because it's on a checklist. So that's a really
I do have a spreadsheet to keep all track of like when I send emails and stuff.
Yeah.
But I feel like they are really busy. Art directors are really busy, and they have hundreds of people applying to them. So like, it's not that they might not have seen your email. It's just like they might not have just be looking for artists at that time that you've reached out to them, and they might not be working on the season or something that you have sent at that time. But then they kind of might think, oh, that's quite nice, but they just don't have the time to like email everyone, right? And so then when I reach out again, it might be maybe in line with what they're working on, maybe not. And sometimes it can take like another go of like reaching out. So like the third or the fourth time. And then I've had a lot of people that I've reached out to like 13 months, 12 months, and it's taken 12 months to actually kind of like start getting something in the works of like reaching out. So it's a slow process, like of kind of like reaching out, and like maybe they might even in that year they might have said, oh, I love your work, but then they're not ready to buy work at that license work at that time. And so it's just finding the right crossroads, I think.
Yeah, that's so interesting. And I think it's a great reminder because I keep hearing that, not just about what you've mentioned. That's kind of the first time that's been brought up, but even once you have a deal, that the creation process until it's on the product, until you get paid, in art licensing, that kind of thing, you have to be very patient. So it's interesting to hear that that's true on the pitching side of things as well. So probably end to end, from first pitch to first payments or product on the shelves, can take quite some time. So even more reason to get on top of pitching, so that you have multiple irons in the fire. I have one more question for you here. And that is, it's a little unclear, but I'll tell you what I mean. How did you get your first X deal? So whatever X may be for you, whether that is a surface pattern design deal or wherever you thought, okay, now I am really a working artist. I have a contract signed. I would love to hear a little about that, if you still remember it.
Yeah, I do actually.
2 years ago.
Yeah. Well, I also have my work on print on demand on Spoonflower and a little bit on Society 6, but Spoonflower I've been really focusing on. And I've kind of been doing small collections because I've got in the fabric, have my stuff on fabric. I have print on demand fabric houses. I probably have about 5 of them. But say Spoonflower, take Spoonflower for one. I also have a fabric company that prints my fabric, like pre-orders it. But say Spoonflower, I kind of was like, okay, I'm going to concentrate on this for a year or two and put my stuff out there. And also I think it's like an engine where people find artists as well. And so someone didn't want to buy my fabric on there, but they reached out, they found my art on there and loved it and reached out to me. And so I didn't pitch to this person, but I got my first art licensing deal through Spoonflower. So I loaded my stuff onto Spoonflower. I was like, I'm not gonna like keep this secret. I'm just gonna like load it, say that I've got a collection out in the world. And even though my Spoonflower at the time, my Spoonflower sales were really slow and really small, I still made money through being on there because people found me. And so that was probably this company here was one of my first, did nappies. So she found me through there, and a company here in New Zealand. And she took heaps of my art and we did quite a bit. And so that was really exciting. And yeah, just finding my feet and like practicing on like, oh, I've got to get a contract together and all of the things. So I feel like print on demand can help sometimes artists be found. It's not just about your sales on those sites.
Yeah, that's a good point. And I think maybe that's something one can consider to be part of pitching. I know it's not pitching a person directly, but just having your art out there in the world so that you can be found, I think is important. And it's a good way to think about it, that it's not necessarily about sales out of that one shop or, what kind of engagement you have on that one platform. But hey, if it gets in front of the right person, then that could get you a deal. So that's definitely motivational to keep going, even when sometimes you think it's kind of crickets on some of those sites. That's a super cool story.
I know that heaps of people on Society 6 have been found, like had their work in Urban Outfitters and that kind of thing through working on those sites. So yeah, it's nothing to be sneezed at.
All right. I have one more question for you, but before I ask you that, I have a little follow-up question for the audience. So we asked you at the beginning, and if you weren't here at the beginning, feel free to add it into the chat now. But we were asking you, how long have you been making your art and have you pitched it? And this is a follow-up question. If you have not, then what is the biggest thing holding you back from pitching? Maybe we can respond to that later in the live. So please put that into the chat. And if you are pitching, then let us know what is your favorite part of the process. All right. Fleur, I don't have an exact question prepared that I can display, but I think you had a live stream or something of your own that focuses on pitching, and I was wondering if you could just share with anyone who might get excited about this topic now watching the live stream, but really wants some more hands-on help, where they can find that or what the content is.
Yeah, so my friend Ryan and I, who is the designer of Charlie Rowan's designs, and we created like a workshop on the art of pitching. And I think you've got the link, so you'll pop it in the thing. But we reached out to Dylan M, and we got her on board, and we did like a real intense workshop on this. And we were just kind of really wanting to shed a light on all the questions that you would have when you're kind of starting out, to make it easier and less overwhelming for people, because we were finding it when we first started, it was really this overwhelming thing. So we really wanted to shed a light on how we are doing it. We take deep dives into the back end of our pitching and how we do that. And Dylan shares a book pitch that she's working on, which was like absolutely amazing to see how she's working through that. Yeah, it was just a deep dive on all the questions that you have, and the link will explain more, but the replay is up for sale at the moment.
Yeah, it sounds really interesting. I might just have to go and buy a ticket, because I think these conversations are so helpful, but they're so short as well.
Yeah,
so,
we do deep dive into it, and there was heaps of bonuses that we put in there as well. We poured our hearts into it. We were exhausted after the workshop. But yeah, lots of things just to help the community move along a little bit faster and get going on pitching. Kind of like faster than you think you can actually start. So like, I feel like, yeah, it's a good insight.
That's super cool. Yeah, when I asked Fleur and I reached out to her, I did not realize that she had a workshop like that. I was just thinking about the licensing deals that you had yourself. And so I think that's actually really, really cool that, yeah, you can add that as a follow-up if anyone is interested in learning a little more. So then thank you so much for sharing. I'm really, really impressed by what you have achieved, and I'm in love with all those little nappies. They're so cute. I have to admit, we tried the cloth diaper thing and gave up, but in my heart, it's like, I wish, we were doing that, and for sure I would have cute nappies like that. All right. So you can always chime in if you also want to say anything to any of the other questions, but we're going to move on now to Anna. So let me have a look here. I am wondering, you said you have been pitching for a while. How has the content or approach of your pitches changed since you first started?
Well, of course, it has changed just because, just the times have changed, like including the whole COVID mess. So, I made some notes that I would love to share about these, in the sense that for me, the most important thing is how to get in contact with the people that I want to pitch, because that's the first limiting step.
Let me get that question up instead. So,
okay, perfect.
We can absolutely answer that one. If you're prepared and that's what you want to share, that's exciting. So let's do that one.
Perfect. So I think that there's obviously changes. Reversing to the previous question, it changes depending on what you are pitching. If you're pitching for licensing, is work you already did, is things you have ready to get off your desk because they are ready to go. If you're pitching a children's book, or you're pitching a clothing collection, or you're pitching a design project or an illustration project that is not for licensing, but it's more like project-based, then the nature of what you're pitching is quite different, because then you're pitching the prospect of a project, the prospect of an idea that you still have to work on, but you have to have created enough so that it makes sense for that person, and that person falls in love and wants to join in the process of making this thing towards the future, as opposed to licensing that is work you did in the past. So moving on to this question, there's obviously, like Fleur was describing, there's the whole detective work that you can do to find the person you want to pitch to. And that is a huge component in any industry, whether it's a licensing or it's a, forward-looking project. And that's something that needs to be done like consistently and also spontaneously. The spontaneous aspect takes me to my favorite thing, serendipity. So you never know who you are going to meet. You never know who can connect you. You never know who will have an idea or a friend. So being open to serendipity is a great way to connect with people, because at the end of the day, whomever you are pitching, whatever you are pitching to, is a person, and you want to connect on a human level, not just on like a merchandising level kind of thing, like a commerce level. So, in brief, I'll share how my kid book deals happened. I was walking the New York Now show, the gift shows, to see if it was a good fit for my clothing line to be there, because I had all this clothing line that is sort of high-end and it's great for gifts. So I thought, okay, let's go see the gift show. It turned out not to be a perfect environment for my clothing line, but I was walking with my daughter, who was wearing one of my dresses, and we were done for the day. So we just went to where all the book publishers are. And I started talking to a guy from a really cool publishing house, and then about his book. So I was like, oh, I love this book and I love this book. So this was not a pitch. This was a conversation. This was establishing a connection. And then he asked me, what do you do? And I showed him my daughter's wearing the dress. And I had the little storybook that matched that illustrated dress. And, and that's when serendipity happened. And he said, we are opening up our children book division to produce our own books, as opposed to just in-license them. And that was the beginning of the magic of getting 2 books published by them. So, that's how serendipity can turn a conversation into a pitch. Another big resource is your community and your peers. I think that in our profession and in our industry, each person is so unique that you should not see your peers as your competition. You should see your peers as someone unique trying to do the same thing you are doing, getting your art in front of people. So getting ask your peers for advice, ask your peers for connections, ask your peers, do you know who can I reach to? And of course, there's always going to be the nasty person that doesn't want to share, because in this playground, there's always the kid that doesn't share the toys. But I think that as a community, it's really good to help other people out when you can, to ask for help. You know, like Mr. Rogers always said, if you need help, find the helpers. So Mr. Rogers was this guy that did children television in the US, for whomever doesn't know about him. But I really like this notion of ask your peers for help, because, you know, otherwise it gets lonely in the studio, right? So, and that's something that is very important. Another thing is, there's people in your life that really love you, that are really kind of like mesmerized that you are an artist, that because they are not, but you don't know also who they know. And I've gotten great projects and great connections out of friends that are not in the industry, but that they ended up knowing somebody. And so if your friends and family know what you do and know what you're trying to achieve, a connection may come from there. And then something that sometimes people don't tap into is existing clients and repeat clients. So you can always repitch to people you've worked for in the past, and you can always get new projects or extended projects. And those long-term relationships, for me, have been marvelous.
Wow, I'm kind of flabbergasted. I'm like really feeling the vibes of the serendipity and the luck and the magic. And I think something that really stands out to me from what you're saying is to be open, because I think often, especially artists that are maybe in a side hustle stage, or, you know, they may not be completely open with what it is that they're trying to achieve with their friends, with their family. They're, you know, kind of hiding this until it's successful. But of course, that could be a long journey. And I think it's so beautiful to really have that human interaction that you're saying, and not necessarily that everything is a pitch, but what can happen when you show up completely yourself as an artist, with all your excitement about what you want to do and all the beauty you can create, and that there's many people out there looking for something, and that maybe they don't have those talents and they're needing someone just like that. And just like maybe we are looking for people to pitch to, there are people that don't know how to find an artist, maybe, right? So I think you see that a lot in forums, and like, I want to create something, I have a startup, or like, how do I find an artist? So that's a really interesting approach. Is there any other specific question you wanted to ask? Otherwise, I'll pick one or answer. Sorry.
No, go for it. Go for it.
Okay. Let's see what else we have here. Okay. How do you deal with rejections in the pitching process?
Honestly, I mean, I take it as part of the project. It's like, if you don't see the goodness in me, it means that it's not a good fit. It's not that I'm a bad artist. I mean, I always try to put my best work forward, and so it's just that it was not a good fit. Like, if I'm a 22-year-old looking for a boyfriend, I knew my boyfriend was not going to be the jock playing football. So if the jock playing football rejected me, I took no offense. Now, if the, artsy, interesting dude that likes books rejected me, then, because that was what I was interested in, right? But the reality is that, there's so many projects you can do. There's so many people you can work for. You want to work with people that really appreciate what you do. So a rejection for me is just a sign that, like Fleur said, either it was the wrong time because they were not buying pineapple illustrations at the moment, they were buying strawberries, in which case you just repitch and you come back. But, just don't take it personally. I think that's the most important thing. It's not about you. It's about either the wrong timing or the wrong person. So you just keep on going. And there's so many fishes in the sea that you just have to keep on finding your peeps. You have to keep on finding the people that really appreciate, and you need to appreciate the moments of serendipity when they are looking for what you are offering, because then it's beautiful. And just keep, I don't know, I'm just going a little bit cuckoo here, but I love Finding Nemo, and I love Dory, and I love that she said just keep swimming. So that's how I deal with it. I just keep swimming.
That's
and
beautiful.
I don't take it personally.
I love that. That's such a beautiful, positive attitude. And I actually thought sometimes rejections were like improvement for me, because when I first started sending out things, it was just crickets, like no answers, nothing. And then I started getting rejections. I'm like, ooh, I'm moving up. Like, so it's the 10 seconds to tell me no, like it must not be so horrible anymore.
And in a weird way, a no is a call to action. Because if you're pitching, let's say, to this specific publisher or to this specific company, and you're putting all your hope in that specific company, and they give you a no, that no is the call to action to go pitch the next batch of companies or the next batch of publishers. So, it's just to keep the project, the process going forward.
That's good advice. Fleur, you wanted to say something?
Yeah, I was just going to say is that I also don't take no as like a never. So like sometimes I'm just like, it's a not right now, so like it's
exactly.
Sometimes I kind of just like go, oh, I still really would like to work with that company. And so I just mark on my calendar in 6 months, 8 months, or like, because we can develop as artists too. We're not just stagnant in the same, like what I was doing last year is quite different to what I'm doing this year. So I feel like we can repitch. If you get a no and it's a company you would really love to work with, just kind of move it and mark it on your calendar, forget about it, and come back to it in a year's time or 8 months' time and try again. The person might have moved on. There might be a new person there. You never know.
Yeah,
that's
exactly.
a very productive approach. I really like that. Alrighty. Thank you so much, Anna, for sharing. We are going to move on to Tatjana with some questions for now. But I'm distracted by all your beautiful offices in the background. So much to see. But all right. So Tatjana, this is going to be not quite the right wording for you. I know there's pitch decks, there's brand books, there's portfolios, and I think you had a tear sheet that I could share. So I would love to show that, and maybe you can share a little bit about what you usually send out. All right, there seems to be a bit of a delay. I can't hear you yet.
I'm having trouble hearing you, so if you can't hear, yeah. Should I turn off my camera?
I can hear you. I can hear you.
Okay. All right. Let's go. My pitch deck. Yeah. So it changes all the time, and it's very specific to the people that I'm sending things to, because actually one thing I wanted to talk about too is how to find the people. And so I put this together. It has different examples of my work, then things I like to do, which is very important. You don't want to, but so it has my my name, my website, my contact information. It has some examples of published work, some black and white, some color, and some of my favorite things that I would like to do again or try to do more of. And so these are usually, I send these as introductions like this of people I haven't worked with, or an example, like Fleur said, of an update. This is something I've been working on, or a book that I just finished, and here's a view of it. And in part, I have a kind of an introduction, because I often find I get emails from Publishers Weekly, for example. And so they always say, here's a new publisher, or this publisher has split and started a new division. They always, they tell you the art directors and kind of what their vision is. And so I'll go to the website and I'll see, most of the time, children's book publishers are a pretty idealistic bunch, especially the new small ones. And so they'll talk about what their, what's important to them and what their philosophy is and what they want to do. And so I can tell whether it's something that I would fit with or not. And if it is, then I write an email that is tailored to them. And I say, you know, I like your work. I'm interested in working with you. What you're doing really resonates with me for this reason. Here are some examples of my work. And I'm always interested in feedback and new ideas, and would like, you know, would be interested in collaborating sometime. And then I will follow up again a different time with a different sheet like this. I also have links to my portfolio and to my Instagram, because I spend a lot of time. That's how you can see what I'm working on. Then another way I find people to approach is that I'm kind of just, I feel like it's just an obsession of mine kind of books. I've always really liked them, and I used to kind of deny it, and then I'd say it was my kids, but now my kids are grown, and I just admit it. I just really like children's books. But so I also, whenever a new book comes out that I like, I go and find the publisher, and on Instagram, I actually, you know how you can save things, and I have a special folder that says jobs I want. And so whenever somebody makes a puzzle, and I love puzzles and games and any kind of kids product, so I always just put it in that file, and then later I will go look up who made the puzzle or who made the publisher and see if they have submission information, for example. And so you know who to send it to, and then I would put together work that would be suitable for those things. And that's one thing I haven't done yet, but that I might do in the future, because for some things it's more of a licensing thing where you would actually make the puzzle and then try to shop it around. But I haven't really done that. I really like collaborating with people on a project. So part of working as an illustrator to me is having the input of the writer and then turning it into kind of a third story where you have the writer's story and you have my interpretation, and together they make a whole new story, kind of. So
that's beautiful.
I got off track, but this is kind of my pitch deck. And then I do have, the other thing I'm planning on doing is my New Year's resolution is having a business Pinterest where you can put all of those things and have it be kind of another showcase for your work with other information. But I still have an old Pinterest, you know, with projects for your toddlers and recipes for your birthday. And so I think it's evolved a lot.
I think you shared some really, really helpful information there. I think not everyone watching might know about Publishers Weekly. So I think that's an incredible tip. I think that's pretty genius how you use that. And I think it's also helpful because it is current. So because picture books take so long to create and publish, what you see hitting the stores right now is not what is selling on the publishing level right now. So that Publishers or Publishing Weekly newsletter will give you that insight into what just sold now. So I think that's also a really interesting piece of information that you can add.
There are other... I was going to say...
Go ahead.
Sorry, I have a delay. I was going to say, because you mentioned that as a resource, and I do like that a lot, especially because it will come and surprise you I can't remember, maybe it's once a week, but so you get completely current information and you didn't even go look for it. So you can subscribe to their email. But then also there's resources like people who like children's books would know that you can be part of the Society of Children's Book Writers and Illustrators, and they have a book that tells you about pitching. And then there's also something that used to be really important, and I'm not sure it is now, although I think if you get one every now and then, it could still be helpful, because it's called the Children's Writers and Illustrators Market. And it's something you can buy. It's a book you buy off of Amazon or wherever, but it's just a mainstream book. And it has essays and interviews with people, so it's a little bit entertaining, but it also has lots of publishers and their submission requirements. And so at least in the past, you could go in and you could, circle everything that applies to you, and then they tell you who to contact and how to approach them and whether they take agented or unagented submissions. And now, what I would do before I actually follow up on that is I would check on the internet and make sure that the art directors are still there and the editors are still there, because publishing it moves really fast.
Yeah, those are really helpful resources. I think combining that with what you said earlier makes total sense. So I think when you have lists like that from SCBWI or like different books that are this thick, you can think, I'm just going to like send everyone everything, just kind of rain on this approach. But I don't think it'll work, right? I think you need something tailored, something personalized, like you said, to really understand what are they about. I think that'll probably, even if you pitch less, I would assume you're more likely to be successful if you really take the time to make it personal and try to figure out who am I a good fit for, not just any publisher or any licensing company, or, who does my artwork actually work for? Is that something you found?
Definitely. Me, yes. I think it's very important because you don't want to get something. You want to know whether people are talking to you specifically. You don't just want to get a blanket one that, you don't send science fiction artwork to a publisher who likes folk tales and vice versa. Because if you weren't paying attention and you probably don't care. You just want any job, which is that's not the kind of job it is. But I have one more resource too, if you can hear me.
Yes, absolutely.
Okay, for one thing that I use that's more technology is that I keep all of the information that I find in Airtable files, and so you can put in the people and the publisher and the art director and all that.
Very cool. Yeah, this has nothing to do with what you just said, which was helpful, but I'm just in love with your little cat and the balloons, and I want this. I hope you sell it as a card or something, and if not, you should, because it's so cute. It's adorable.
Oh, okay. Thanks.
All right. Thank you all so much for your answers. I'm going to ask you right now, because we are a little over the scheduled time. Do you still have time for a few more group questions, or does anyone need to run?
No, I'm okay.
Yeah? Okay, great. Then we'll keep going for just a few minutes. This is kind of an advice round. So like Tatjana started, if there's any resources you could recommend, you could either answer this question, or I have another one, so everyone can pick what they like. And that is, what is the one thing that made the biggest difference to your pitching journey? So either that or any resources that you think other artists might find helpful. Does anyone have anything right? I think you are all thinking. Does anyone want to start?
I'll jump into this question.
Yes.
Because I very recently, I'm in the process of pitching something that I care a lot about. Mm-hmm. It's a book pitch. And somebody that reviewed my pitch deck for this book gave me a very important piece of advice that I want to pass along. That on one end, you have to put your absolute best work forward and edit and clean and make it super professional. Because whomever is receiving a pitch, in their mind, they are also thinking of reasons on why to reject you. So you shouldn't give them reasons to reject you. But at the same time, so you have to be very assertive and very professional and showcase your talent. But the most important thing is that needs to be paired with showing that you are a nice person, that you are kind, that you're respectful, that you're not a diva, that it's nice to work with you, that you're flexible. So for me, this big piece of advice from somebody that I've known for so many years, he published my children's books. So he was my editor for that. He's not, and so he advised me, always pair your best foot forward, your big assertiveness with being kind and respectful and a nice person to work with. And that should come through in every pitch.
Wow, that is incredible advice and seems very, very difficult to nail.
Yes, but that's a goal.
Yes, I guess everything is practice, right? Maybe you just keep getting better at pitching, but that sounds very convincing, and that, yes, I can see how that would make a big, big difference. Thank you.
I just thought of one. I think sometimes we try to do all the things and like try this and try that, and that's all well and good. But I feel like sometimes when you niche down, you can have your sights on like niching down a little bit. You can find better success sometimes because you're not speaking to everyone. You're speaking to a particular group. So whatever there's something that's you're passionate about, might be picture books or children's clothes or apparel, just concentrating on that for a little bit and seeing how you go with niching down a little bit instead of trying everything a little bit watered down, but trying one a smaller area concentrated can help. That's when I found where it just went woof for me.
Yeah, that makes sense. You said you focused on the children's design space, right? And so probably if someone is interested in your work, then you can show so much more, having experience, having portfolio in that area. So that makes a lot of sense. And it's hard, right? Because you always have that shiny new thing, something else you want to try, and other income streams you need to create, but you probably do need to lock one down first and get it going, right?
It's a layered thing. So I feel like now I'm layering in other things, but as soon as I concentrated on something that I was really passionate about, I noticed a huge shift instead of trying all the things.
That's really helpful advice. Yeah, so we can hear you, Tatjana. Do you want to answer as well?
I'm trying to think. I think when I stopped worrying too much about it because I guess I started to just respond to when I saw a publisher that I liked, or when a friend of mine had a book deal and I thought, oh, that would be a good place. Then I have an email. It's what I do is I go to my sent messages and I have an email, an art submission. And so I have an email I can go back to, and there's probably a better way to do this, but for me, it's the easiest way. I just go back to an older email and I edit it to make it fit a newer person or this person that I'm trying to approach. And then I add things to it and I send it without overthinking it. So I think that for me, that's been the best thing, is to just be actually everyone is saying, is just be authentic about it. Respond in a way that shows your personality, that you're excited about the work, show what work you do, and that you're open to feedback, but you have your own ideas. So it is a balance. I think like Anna said, you want to show something that's really polished, but that leaves room for it. It doesn't look like you're done and you can't accept criticism or feedback or anything like that. And I was going to say something else too, because we're all from different places, which might have to do with my problems with the reception. I don't know. I'm in the country in South Carolina, but that I've noticed that depending on where you pitch, the response is very different, because I send things, I'm from Switzerland, and so I've tried recently to send things to European publishers more. And European publishers, they answer you. Like an American publisher, I've never heard anything back. I think eventually I might get a job through it, and so they must have gotten the memo. But a European publisher will say, thank you so much for sending us these samples. That's so nice of you. And unfortunately, we don't have anything right now, but they always answer. And I'm sure they're busy too.
Wow.
But so I think that's really different.
Yeah, that's unexpected. Very cool.
Random comment. Yeah. I mean, it's also just, I think, the European versus American, I think is a cultural difference, because it's also made me change my email style. And I think that might be relevant too, that an American email, they don't really want to hear about the weather in general or your children, but a German email or a French one, they are much more chatty. Like if you just, I have to, instead of answering just the information, I actually write the email and then I go back and start and say, how are you? How is your, how have you been? And you add the conversation elements in afterwards, because otherwise you're just being rude. If someone wrote you a nice long letter and you go back saying, I'll be there at 5, give me this much money, that doesn't sound friendly. So, yeah. So I think I agree with Anna that it's a lot about just remembering that there's always remembering that there's people in on every aspect of the project, being respectful and thoughtful and kind, and, standing your ground if you have a position, but just remembering to be part of a team. And so in the same vein, you don't take a rejection seriously, because they're not trying to hurt your feelings. They're just doing their job and seeing what would work in each situation.
That's wow.
So yeah, I
That's
guess
almost
to put it
almost
in
so
one
good.
sentence is the biggest difference is the people. No, I was going to say, so if you wanted to answer it in a sentence, for me, the biggest difference was when I realized that everyone is like me on every end and we're all just working together, kind of.
That's so helpful, because I do think we can get stuck in the goals and, oh my God, I need to send this many emails, or I need to make this happen. And so that's really, really beautiful to take that step back and to really personalize it and try to make that human connection and really be ambitious, but also kind of soft in that approach, that combination that you were describing. So I'm going to give the audience one more chance. We don't have a lot of questions today, so that's okay if nothing comes in. But if you are watching live, this is your final chance to get in a question if you have any. And so that's any question. What's your question that you wish you knew the answer to when it comes to pitching your art? Maybe one of these artists has some insight. So we'll give you a minute or two to type that. And while we wait for the audience there, that's also the final chance for all of you. Is there anything that you had thought about the topic or that came up during the conversation that you haven't had a chance to say that you really want to make sure the audience hears? Anyone have anything else they want on this live stream?
We're like,
You're all happy? Okay, that's good too. Everything has been said. All right.
Thank you for having us.
Of course.
Yeah,
well, thank you so much for joining. I'm so thrilled that you shared your pitching process, and I'm really surprised and amazed in a beautiful way how you go about it. And you've certainly sparked a little more of serendipity and magic in my thinking on this topic, because I was thinking of it in a very structured manner and, planning it all and having all these systems. And it somehow just seems that, yes, obviously you need to be professional, but also there's a lot of just being in the right place, putting yourself in the right place in the right moment, and you might not know. So just keep trying. And if you get a no, don't take it as a no forever. Contact other companies, create new work, always be creating if you want to be a professional artist, and be respectful. And yeah, I think it's a really beautiful approach, and I look forward to looking into all of your artwork a little more. I'm going to show the outro here pretty soon. And everyone has their links directly below in the video description. So I'll show them on screen, but if you'd rather just click than try to type and find people, the direct links are all there. And we did get one question here that I want to share with you, and we'll end with that one. So if anyone wants to answer this one, from the goodness of your art, how do you get over not feeling that your work is good enough?
I'll talk to that. By loving what you do and being convinced, but also putting the hours to hone in your craft. So good art doesn't happen at the first attempt. Nobody gets it right the first time or the second time. The more you work, the more you hone in your craft, the better your art will be. The more you hone in into working with things that are meaningful to you, that really spark your spirit, will make spark come through in other people's eyes. So just keep at it, just work on it, just create bodies of work that you are very proud of. And once you have a volume, they always talk about like the 10,000 hours. Maybe you don't need 10,000 hours necessarily, but to start putting your work out. But once you have, a range of things, then just do like a beauty contest, start removing the ones that are not the best ones, and stick to the ones that really, really reflect you as an artist. And that's the stuff that you can start showing forward. And those are the things that you go back to all the time. There is a podcast I listen to every single week that is the Creative Pep Talk. And I love it because every week it gets me back on track. Every week I go and learn something. So look for it. This is from Andy J. Pizza, and he's fabulous. And just listen to his wisdom, and you will stop being overwhelmed about thoughts of, oh, I'm not good enough. We are all work in progress. You will be better next year. I will be better next year. It's just a matter of staying with it and keep on working on it.
Also, we can have this imposter syndrome, like we all have it. And sometimes it's just having the 5 seconds, 10 seconds of courage, and not to be too much of a perfectionist, because sometimes we can actually, like pitch when we might not feel like we're not quite ready. Like we can, like we have to do the work, and we have to keep doing the work, and we're only going to get better by doing the work. We're not going to be perfect. We're never going to be perfect. That saying, like, practice makes perfect. It kind of doesn't. We're never going to be perfect. It's just we're going to be better. So the more we do, the better we're going to be. And so if you're in that kind of space, I also agree with what you were saying as well about coming from joy. Like, if you're overwhelmed with everything, then come back to the joy of why you want to do this as a career, why you love doing art, and find the joy again. Like, get your paints out, or get excited about the iPad, or I love learning. Like, I'm constantly learning as well. I love seeing how other people do art. Like, that brings me joy. Like, is there any tips that they're doing that can make my art process like quicker and faster and more streamlined? Yeah, find the joy in it. And then when you're really loving it, it will show through on your work. People will want to be a part of that.
And the imposter syndrome comes from when you're trying to be an imposter, when you're trying to be someone you are not. So if you stick with who you are and work on making your thing that is meaningful to you the best every day, then there's no imposter syndrome, because you are being yourself. So that's also something to think about every time you're feeling like, oh, I'm an imposter. No, that's not true. You are being yourself. So you're not being an imposter.
Yeah, it's the having blinkers on too, right? If we look around too much, we can go, look what she's doing, look what she's done. Just don't compare.
Yeah.
Just don't compare. Like, blinders on, that this is your journey. It's not somebody else's journey. It's your journey. It might be slower than other people because you're trying to work and do all the things. Be a mum. I've got 2 kids. That's crazy, like, and then we can get kind of like, oh, well, look what she's doing. Like, how did she get that or something? But I think we just got to focus on our own journey. Blinkers on, and can dull down that imposter syndrome. But finding the joy is key, and the consistency.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Tatjana, do you want to answer as well?
He's frozen.
I'm still
you
having
are.
in and out, but I agree with both of those, and I feel like it's not like there's a right answer in art. So the other thing is that a lot of times it's not the finished quality that's what counts, but really what you're trying to say or how you're saying it that makes the most difference. So I agree, if you practice and try to find the joy in it, then you will also express what you're trying to say in a better way, because it's not the most refined art that is the most beautiful in the end. Something that is the most perfect isn't necessarily going to tell the story the best way. And everyone likes different things too, and we're always our own harshest critics. So that's a whole other problem. But
I completely agree with a lot of what all of you are saying, but I do have a bit of a hot take on this one too. And that is not for you, the goodness of your art. This is about me, okay? I'm not saying this is you, but maybe it does resonate with some other people. So I think in my case, when I first started pitching art, my art was not good enough. Like, it was not professional level, because I think there's also a certain amount of respect that you have to give, because art is something that you don't have to go to school for. You can, right? But a lot of people try to teach themselves. And when I first started, my art was not really at a professional level, nowhere near it. Like Anna said, maybe not 10,000 hours, but you have to invest a lot of time. And you can't, like, I remember literally going to a conference and it's like a few weeks after I started drawing again as an adult. And I'm like, oh, I need to have my portfolio ready. And, I need 12 pieces. And I had some coach and she was like, are you crazy? Like, you can do this, but you're not going to have 12 solid pieces in 3 weeks. Like, I don't know what you're talking about. So I think there is sometimes just that accepting too that the road can take a long time. And you will absolutely improve, right? There is practice, and you don't have to do a realistic painting. Like, there's so much more to it, depending on your area of expertise or where you're trying to get some work. Maybe it's storytelling needs to be good in the images, or your color story, or there's a lot of other aspects other than just it needs to be a realistic drawing. It doesn't have to be. There's so many different art styles. But I think there's a lot of progress to be made when you practice, no matter what style you're going for and what you're trying to develop. There's tons of different tastes. But I do think there's art that is kind of at a beginner level and needs a lot of skill development. And then art that is worthy because on the other end, it's a business as well, right? So they are trying to sell something with your art, product, books, whatever. It needs to be appealing enough to be a solid bet for the receiving end, to invest money and invest their business. It's a risk as well. So that was a big learning for me, that I was putting my art out there in a pitch and it really wasn't good enough. I can see that now. I couldn't see it at the time. And I think there's nothing wrong with that. Like, we all have to learn and start somewhere. So I would say if you feel like your work is not good enough, just try to keep going because it'll get there. All righty. Okay. Well, I think we will wrap it up with that. I really appreciate you all joining. And as far as the next topic that we have, oops, I'm sorry. I didn't mean to put you up, but I did. Let me undo that. All right, we'll just leave it like this. Yeah, so we don't have a live stream next week. Whichever holidays you may celebrate, I hope you enjoy them. I'll be celebrating Christmas, so we are having a little live stream break. And then we will be back with a new set of artists and a new topic on December 30th. See you then, and thank you all so very much for joining. Bye.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you.
Thanks for having us.
Thanks for having us.
Happy New Year to everyone.
Bye.
Bye. See you.